Hello there, everybody. Charles Hamaker here. This is not Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. This is not a game preview. We're back for an interview. It's been a long time. I've got a Seattle Kraken related interview, as you can see by the hat, and I've put the blue light in the background here. This is the 54th installment in the Seattle interview series, the second related to our Seattle Kraken. I've been trying to get this set up for a while. I apologize. Some of this is on me, so I apologize. Well, most of it's on me. I apologize. I'm really excited to have Angelica Salem here with me from the Kraken. If you have ever been to a game, the in-game entertainment is a big deal. Angelica does anthems from a ton of different venues. Done with our Mariners, was an in-a-game host with our OL Reign as well. Just really, really talented woman, and really excited to have her on the show. On the show, and to learn more about her. So we're going to bring her in here.
Cool.
Welcome, Angelica. I'm glad to have you on. Got you at a time. The homestand has ended. We're at the All-Star break here. Well, first of all, before anything else, is it nice to just kind of slow down? I know you've got a bunch of stuff going on outside of the Kraken and doing all of that. So have you been able to just kind of take a breather, like some of these guys going to Mexico or Cancun or whatever? How have you been since the last game?
Yeah, not quite yet. I'm still kind of flying on a little bit of a busy roll. But I am going to the East Coast this week for about 10 days, visit home, visit my family, and see some of my friends. So that'll be a nice little break for me. I'm looking forward to that.
Hopefully the Empire State Building switched back by the
Oh,
time. I,
I
I
don't know
was
if I
like,
can talk about that.
I was like, that's weird. But no, it's really great to with how busy these things are, it's one thing to remember that the arena staff too are gonna get a little bit of a break as well,
Yeah.
for all of this sort of stuff. So to get into the early career, before we get to Kraken, before we get to other sports, um, was there a moment when you sort of realized that you wanted, whether it was just singing randomly one day, maybe you knew from the jump, you have favorite memories from like early performances? When did it dawn on you that you wanted to, use your talent, use your voice talent for something more, I guess?
Um, Gosh, a very, very, very long time ago. I've been singing since I could talk pretty much. And I was a theater kid growing up, which I've talked about a little bit here and there since coming out to the West Coast. But yeah, no, it's singing and performing has kind of just been in my blood since I could walk and talk and all of the above. And I've definitely had a couple of different paths with it along the way, but it's just something that no matter what's going on, I always circle back around to. So I've kind of just made it my mission to keep that going no matter what.
And so, you mentioned it in talking about the break and there as well. Just on a personal note, how different for you has it been on the West Coast than the East Coast? I know you see at some of these games, like when the Seahawks played the Giants, you've got your Giant stuff out, stuff like that. How different for you has it been? I know that there's something like the Seattle Freeze as mentioned, the weather here, all that sort of stuff. How different for you as Angelica has it been East Coast, West Coast sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely different. Growing up in New England is a lot different than growing up in Seattle, I'm sure. So I am still adjusting. The weather, it's funny you say that, and I tweet about it. I'm very open about how I feel about the weather out here. But it's funny because I'm come from, severe winters on the East Coast, lots of snow, lots of cold. So being out here and getting a couple of inches of snow and everything shutting down was a little bit of a shock for me. And then my only other quarrel I have with Seattle is no air conditioning in the summer because I hate the heat so much, and it gets very warm these days in the middle of the summer. So I've been battling that just a little bit, but otherwise it's been great. And yeah, just trying to like embrace the whole like outdoor adventure kind of stuff is very new to me because I'm a city girl through and through. So living by the water in the mountains over here is awesome. And just being surrounded by such beauty all the time has been a very nice treat. Yeah, so it's really just the weather has been my biggest my
That
biggest
it's always
argument.
what it is. It's always what it is, and unfortunately those extremes, like that ice
Yeah.
storm that one Friday,
Yeah.
never in my
Never happened.
existence.
I
and
know.
even the
Well,
heat.
I remember people talking about it like, oh, our winters are so horrible here. And I'm like, they're really not that bad coming like compared to where I'm coming from, but it's more of just like the way everything is handled and how,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
can't
Oh,
really
yeah.
do much when you get an ice or a snowstorm out here. You kind of just have to stay put. Whereas like back home, we get a foot of snow and they're like, so you're still coming to class, you're still coming to
Yep.
work, right? I'm like, yep, totally.
Yeah. No, that's what it's been lately. Well, lately, the last few years is the snow's been more extreme and the heat's been more extreme. My body never touched 90 before
Gosh.
lately. And so I'd go down to California and I'd be like, wow, I'm dying.
Oh, wow.
So, that's the weather is definitely something I hear about. So it's interesting to hear that.
Yeah.
Um, so, to go back to, performing in the younger years, what obstacles did you face? Because I know, obviously everybody deals with, their own self-criticism and all that, but especially as someone who's in effectively the spotlight, figuratively and literally, what did you face obstacle wise, and how are you able to overcome it? Because I'm sure, at some point maybe self-doubt creeps in and stuff like that, and you're working to get better. How did you deal with those obstacles?
I was a competitive Irish dancer growing up, fun fact.
Wow.
So I was traveling all over the place competing for about 12-ish years. And I bring that up just because I credit most of my ability to kind of handle this world to Irish dancing.
Huh.
Because there was a lot of, it was a very competitive sport. Believe it or not, it's very random. A lot of people don't know much about it. Um, but it kind of shapes you a little bit in the sense that like you have to have a little bit of a tough skin from a very young age. You have to be able to lose gracefully, or you learn how to lose gracefully at least. And hours and hours of practice. It's like being an athlete, and
Mm.
athletes and how they get their work done. They know how to lose. They know how to put in the time, the effort. There are lots of ups and downs for sure. But between that and then just being in and out of auditions growing up, and up until very recently, I still audition, I still do all of that. It just comes with the territory of like learning how to be okay with hearing no and just kind of plugging through anyway. And there are definitely days that are some days are for sure harder than others, and some rejections are definitely a little bit more brutal than others. But I think just over the years kind of learning how to find the balance and learning how to shake it off, and knowing that like, hey, this is what you want to do, then this is what you're going to have to handle and what you're going to have to take. And it's not foolproof. It's definitely not foolproof. It definitely still stings once in a while. But yeah, it comes with the territory. It's just something I learned again thanks to Irish dancing from a very very young age. So I feel like I've had decades of experience with it long before my this kind of performing era that I'm in now. Yeah.
Irish dancing is not what I had on my checklist today. So that's
Fun fact.
I'm Irish, but I can't dance in any either way. So no, that's I mean, again, with bringing you on and in any of the interviews that I do, it's always interesting, no matter what sort of field you're in, whether you're the athlete on the field, you're the broadcaster, you're the in arena entertainment, any way, shape, or form, the journey that brings you to where you are is always so cool to hear about, because again, Irish dancing did not have that on the checklist today.
Yep.
Um, and at least with like anthem singing, I know that is like in any event that is always open to criticism. Like people will always have their take on it, and it's always going to be a tough situation to be in. I know that.
Everyone, yep. Everyone always has something to say.
Yeah. So that's it's tough. And that's like the same thing with athletes. It's like these people that are here to perform for you are gonna face criticism, and they're trying their best, and they'll have bad days. So again, interesting to hear how that really took off for you, how you're able to combat that. And again, did not have that on the bucket list. So before I get to the Kraken, we're gonna kind of transition here from younger years to the other sort of sports here, because obviously you haven't spent your whole time in the city of Seattle.
Right.
What's the coolest venue you've been able to showcase your talents at? I know that there's a lot of impressive buildings around the country. Obviously Climate Pledge is a really cool building in and of itself, but for your personal list, if you have a top, if you don't, you can throw a few at me. But the coolest venue you've been able to perform at, whether that's, because it sounded really cool acoustics wise, or the history of the building, or just a personal favorite for you, what is that personal favorite?
So to be honest with you, Lumen Field is at the top of that list. But this is before I moved here. Before I worked in Seattle sports, I had the opportunity to come out and sing the national anthem for the Seahawks, and sing a halftime song for them. It was for a Hockey Fights Cancer Night a couple years back, and it was one of the coolest things that I had ever experienced, because I had never been in a setting where there were so many people in their seats for the national anthem, because I had done a bunch of sports already. And I had done MetLife, which was also on the top of my list shortly after that, which is just epic. But you guys don't really tailgate here the way we tailgate on the East Coast. So everyone's already in. So for the anthem at home, a lot of the times people miss it. In a lot of arenas, people miss it because they're not in their seats quite yet. So it was the first time I was in a massive football stadium that's beautiful, of course. And then also with just 70,000 plus people just already in their seats, packed and ready to go. And it was my first flyover while I was singing. There was like a whole thing. So there was that moment, and it's just happened to be here in Seattle, which is cool now that I'm here and working in Seattle sports. But that is definitely one of my like top anthem moments. Just so euphoric. Like there's no other way to describe it. It was just so cool.
So, with the selection of Lumen, I've got another question about Lumen. But before that, just I'm curious about that, because you weren't in the area yet. How does one get contacted for something like that? Are you just putting your stuff out there on like socials? Is there a network that's known about? Do you contact these teams specifically? How does that really work?
There it is. It's national anthem singing has become like kind of a fun little hobby of mine. And it is a network. My significant other actually works out here, and that was how I had the connection there. But it's a whole, at the start of, or a little bit before the start of every season, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, I go through a list of people that I know or who I think are possibly still working for the team. And it's a list that I have built intensively over the past, 5-6 years, especially. And I send out my email. Hey, it's me. Would love to be, considered for a national anthem this year, whether I've sung there before, or whether I had never, still haven't gotten a chance to get in that stadium or arena yet. And I send my list of videos. I have a whole thing. And I just sit and I send 100 emails at the beginning of every season. And just hope for a response. And a lot of the time people either respond and I'm too late and they're already full, or, they would love to have me, or, I don't get a response at all. There's like so many different ways it could go. So yeah, it's a lot of networking. It's a thing that I did not know existed until I started doing it a little more often. And I was like, oh, this is like a whole different circle of people. So yeah, it just, and I still do that, even though I'm with Kraken full time now. I still try to get a couple of anthems in as much as I can. I know our season is like extremely heavy, so it's harder for me to travel now. Like I would just I would travel all over the place when I was back on the East Coast, because that was, I didn't have a full-time set thing, so I could. But yeah, I still try to do it here and there. It's a lot of networking. It's a lot of just continuously emailing. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are very sick of getting my email, but I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, because I hear wasn't really in Seattle yet. And I was like, okay, how does that work? Because again, are you emailing this one person at Lumen like, hey, I'd love to do that, and it's just this random email? So it makes a lot of sense. The network, that's something I was told in high school, that networking is very important, and I'm like, yeah, dude, let me get out of here. I'm sweaty, I'm tired. But you like, especially in this industry, it's I'm sure in every industry it's really true. And then for the Lumen follow-up, I heard on one of your interviews, and I believe I remember it actually, because I think I could be wrong about the match that it is, but the Sounders had you for I think it was CONCACAF. and all this stuff was happening, and you were just kind of like, what is going on? I think it was I think it was CONCACAF, because you mentioned it being like a trophy that they win, and I too am still getting my grasp on all of that.
Putting my grasp on
Um,
soccer still.
but was that, do you remember? I think it might have, I don't know if that was the final. I think it might have been the final, like May 4th. I don't know if you remember it
I
specifically.
don't remember if it was a final. I remember it was, and I think I know which one you're talking about. I've had a lot of those oh my God moments. So bear with me if this is not the exact same story that you're thinking of. Um, there was one that whatever the cup or something that they were playing for was being televised on a certain network, I believe. So my anthem had to be a lot shorter.
Oh,
It was one of those like, oh gosh, okay. And it was one of those like kind of tell me right before I walk up there to sing it moments, which is fine. It happens. So that happened to me at a Sounders game. That was and I to be completely honest with you, I do not remember what the cup was or what
yeah.
what time of the year it was for them. But yeah, they were, all I know is it was like a network thing. It was just the way the timing was going
Hmm.
and what they had to fill in on air, I believe, not necessarily in the stadium. So we needed to have a little bit of a quicker, it was usually our anthems are 90 seconds. And they were like, can you do this in like a minute and 10? I'm like, sure, gonna try.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Jeez. Okay. Yeah,
Yep.
because I heard that. I was like, what was happening? Like
Yeah.
some of the times, there's stuff you're like, there's a trade going on in a different thing, and I have to pay attention to that. Or sometimes I am like sitting there, but you don't really, I never really thought about what it's like to be in the person that I see standing on the podium down there,
Yeah.
Um,
Lots going on. You gotta just be ready for anything when you're down there.
so I do want to touch on sort of unique performances and events. I'll use the word unique, but to go back really quick to the venues, is there a bucket list venue or a few for you that you'd like to perform at some point in time? I know that you
Ooh,
thankfully you've been able to do MetLife. I kind of figured that was a good one. Um,
yep.
but anything that is historical or important to you that you'd like to check that off the box at some point in time.
Yeah, I mean, MSG I've done a couple times now. That was also a huge bucket list one for me because it's MSG. You just don't get more epic than that. So that was at the top of my list. I would love to sing in Pittsburgh for the Steelers because my family, I've got lots of Steelers fans in my family, and it's just been another one of those teams that we all just like kind of love and support. So that would just be another truly awesome moment if I ever got to sing there. Yeah, just lots. I have a whole list. I could be here forever. My goal is to try to sing. This was my goal a couple years ago when I was just doing this, but my goal was to try to sing in as many cities and states as possible, in as many sports as I could get. I went to Ohio to sing at one of my best friend was a professional jet dragster racer,
Oh
and
my
I sang the
God.
national anthem for one of her final events there, which was also really, really cool. Just like full American, like old school race car, like everything. It was so cool. I sang in the middle of the runway. Really, really awesome moment. So yeah, I'm just, anything I can get, and just try to keep adding to the list. I love it. It's a fun, awesome experience for me to be able to say that I've been to all of these places too. And it's, a lot of these spots you're not going to necessarily go and visit or go on vacation. So if I get to go there and do what I love to do, it's just, extra feather in the cap.
Sounds definitely like one of those things where it's like I've started and I just want to keep
Gotta
collecting
keep
and keep
going.
adding. Yeah,
That's
God.
where I'm at.
Oh, I mean, it does sound really cool to add to that, right?
Yeah.
Like, just I think of that some of the historic venues, and I'm like, I'm sure it would be the same way for you in terms of what you'd want to do there.
Yeah.
Huh. Good to know. Good to keep track of, because
Yeah.
that's what it was, is seeing you like again throughout the inaugural season of the Kraken. I was like, okay, that's there. But then it was through these other events. I was like, this is the same. I've seen this person before, right? Like it's the
Just
same
all
voice, it's the same person, the name's
over.
familiar.
Yep.
Which will lead me into this sort of transitional. We're gonna go into like an escalator here. We're gonna go to the next topic. How did rain come about? because again, I mentioned Kraken, but how did the rain come about? Because obviously they had been in Memorial Stadium and then Starfire for like a year and then to Shaney and then back to Lumen not back to, my apologies, to Lumen this past year. And I'm sure there was like things they were learning and adding throughout the course of the year, like an in-arena host,
Yeah.
right? So how did that all take place to join the Reign and be a part of that year?
Yeah, that was another just kind of lucky domino effect moment. I knew the gentlemen that were being brought in to produce the games once they got to Lumen, and it was, like you said, they were trying to add new effects, new game pres, because all of a sudden they're in this massive stadium and they can do all this great stuff. So they had reached out and they were like, hey, we don't really know what the deal's going to be with the Reign this year and what with their games and what's going on. At the time they had, I think, only 4 of the 17, 18 home games actually scheduled.
Oh,
So they were like, we don't even have a full schedule to give you, and we're not even sure if we can 100% tell you that they're going to let us hire a host, but if they do you want to do it? So it was one of those things, and I was like, yeah, of course, why not? I'm off Kraken season. I wanted to, and again, like, Kraken was the first year that I have kind of done the whole in arena host thing, so of course I'm like, any extra practice, any extra outing I can get myself into. So yeah, it was just one of those who, we're not really sure what's going to happen, but are you on board if possible? And I'm like, totally, count me in. So it was a lot of just kind of like wait and see situations. And then my one of my stage managers actually at Kraken runs the show over there now, so she came in about halfway through and she was like, you're 100% staying on, I'll be back this year, which I'm really excited about. So it's been really cool, and that's another one of those things that, like, again, I'm not a huge soccer, like, I'm still really learning soccer. But it was really cool to watch that team and that arena grow throughout the couple of home games that we had in those couple of months over the summer. It was just like they made it to the playoffs. They went from having like 7,000 fans in the building to like over 20,000 at that last game. And that was so cool to watch, because I've never experienced that before. Like, see something and be a part of something like physically from the ground up, starting so tiny and just like exploding. And they have such a strong fan base, like you would never know. And so it's awesome that they have this arena, this outlet now to really like embrace a higher number of fans and get to more people and do more for their team. It's just really cool to see.
yeah, and that's something, I was raised like I like to tell people, like, Just Fishlock. I told Just Fishlock and Lou Barnes this when I met them at a Kraken game. Actually, I didn't know they were going to be there, and I ran into them. And I told them I grew up. This is the first time I had met them. I said, my parents raised me by having season tickets to the Storm and the Reign. And I said, they raised me right. And Just Fishlock goes, damn right they did. I go,
Damn right they did.
yeah. So to see that at Memorial, where I played like high school football, which is, I mean, Memorial's fine. It's a cool venue. It's right under the Space Needle and Climate Pledge Arena, but they could
Yep.
do with some upgrades, to Shaney, which is fine as a minor league baseball stadium. But I don't know if you ever played soccer growing up. Playing on dirt is not good
No,
for
I
your
can only
like
imagine.
legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a thing. And even when they had a semifinal last year there, they packed that to, like, again, 7,000 is what they could do,
Right.
to go into Lumen, yeah, and to watch that grow every game and to, like, from the press box say, hey, they added more here. And
They add more layers. Yeah, it's so awesome.
it so and I'm interested with that, the with women in sports, how was that like for you? I know that there were like breaks where you would go and you'd be walking around and trying to give it like shirts or merchandise and just the little girls that were there,
Yeah.
because obviously, they're playing soccer on the field, but maybe one of them sees what you're doing and they're like, I can do that, I'd love to do that. was
Yeah.
that is that something that you thought about throughout the course of the season?
Yeah, of course. I always try to like, I lean towards kids, especially because I had so many people that I looked up to growing up that, shaped me and led me to be doing what I'm doing now. So it's like anytime I'm out there, even like the Kraken game the other night, and they're like, you have 90 seconds left before the close. I'm like, I have to go give this kid a puck, a squishy puck. Like, I have to. I ran downstairs. Just like little moments like that. And anytime you think that, like, you see them light up and you see their eyes get so excited, and it's just like, I'm little old me. Like, I'm not I'm not this awesome athlete on the field or on the ice that you're here to see. And like for them to get excited to talk to me or my co-host or anybody that we work with is just, it's like that's what makes our job so much more fun. I mean, we have fun regardless, but I had so many role models growing up, and I hope that if I keep doing this and I can chat with enough people, and again, whether it's a t-shirt, whether it's a squishy puck, whether it's a high five, like anything that's just like the smallest something that could make a little kid go, huh, I could probably do that. Yeah, it means a lot. It means a lot, and it makes the job so much more worthwhile.
Yeah, and that's, like growing up, I'm sure there's who knows how many number of kids that were like, I want to be a soccer player when I grow. I want to be a hockey player. But like I realized that like sophomore year of high school, I'm like, this isn't going anywhere, dude. You got to figure it out. And I didn't really figure out to do all this covering the team stuff until first quarter of college, so
Oh wow.
just
Yeah.
like there's so many opportunities in these sports teams, whether it is, there's so many,
Yeah.
so it's, I think it's important to have folks like you that are going to encourage that, because yeah, when we're at morning skate and the puck flies at me after I make sure my teeth are still fine, I'm like, all right, who am I giving this to? Because I
Right.
don't need another puck. I'm bad
Totally.
at the game already. I played
Totally.
baseball. That's where I belong. So, it's that's I that you love to hear stuff like that. You really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna ask if you're gonna be back for rain, but you seem to answer that already.
I will be. Yeah.
Um, and then just off the top of your head, I apologize because maybe I probably should know this, but how many of the teams here have you hit? Because let me just go down the list. You've already mentioned Seahawks. I've seen you at
Yep.
Mariners. I don't know if I've seen you at a Storm game yet.
I did
Um,
sing at Storm last year.
okay, all
Yep.
right. Geez. Sounders, Kraken, obviously, Rain. So you're hitting like everybody. All we need, like, if you're gonna complete the gauntlet here, we have Seawolves, which again come down to Starfire. It's a lot of fun. It's a great atmosphere despite being a lot smaller. And
Yep.
Sea Dragons, which will be in Lumen. So it's like
Yep.
you've already been in that building. So like Angelica Salem's gonna run the gauntlet here. Like
Everywhere.
we're gonna
Trying to
run,
have
I'm gonna keep track of this. Again, obviously busy, but that would be hilarious. Like I'd have to follow up on that. But
fun.
yeah, so I was like, oh shoot, like Storm was the one I was most cloudy about. And you've
Yep.
okay, yeah. So um and then I mentioned that we were gonna take the escalator and go to the next level here, but I lied.
Okay.
Um you don't have to mention names, or if you don't want to answer this, you don't necessarily have to. Any of the sort of unique, maybe not as fun experiences you've had with an anthem or a performance at one of these buildings, if anything just like, wow, that just really did not go how I wanted it to. Have there been any moments like that you'd want to share, or is that something like,
No, I mean, yeah, most of them are, all of them, have to do with me and my performance, of course. So I'm my biggest critic. So there's always going to be something. Yeah, I mean, I started one of the national anthems I did last year for the Kraken. I started like, fun fact, I never start my anthem on the same note. Not
hmm,
on purpose. I just don't go out there with like a, pitch pipe or key or anything in mind. Just depends how I'm feeling that day.
hmm,
And I was extremely nervous to sing this anthem for the Kraken because it was about halfway through the season, and it was one of those things where it's kind of like, oh, everybody in the arena knows who I am now, so this anthem is just a little more nerve-wracking than my previous one. But I started like 5 octaves higher than I should have started that day, and my anthem it was fine. All my notes came out. It was just one of those things where I finished and I was like, I just sang that thing way too high, and I was like probably screaming, but what are we going to do about it? That's it. Yeah, I mean, stuff like that happens, but again, it's one of those things. It just comes with the territory. You're going to have mess ups, there's going to be not your best. And just learning not to be too hard on yourself and just brush it off. There's always a chance to do it again. And yeah, that's it.
And then on like a smaller thing, something I noticed during these anthems is when, obviously you go through the anthem, like here they try to like emphasize the C part, the red
Yeah.
glare part. But then some of these games, like more than others, you'll notice like everyone says the fight part. Um, Sometimes they just start saying random words like there or that throughout them. Does that like do you get annoyed by that? Do you get thrown off by that when you're trying to, or are
No,
you trying to
not
like
not
tunnel vision?
anymore. Yeah, I mean, I don't even hear that, to be honest with you. And that's funny that you bring that up, because the first time, again, hockey was a very new sport for me a couple years ago. And it was one of when I say did a national anthem for the Rangers at Madison Square Garden, which again, epic, so awesome. But I had been to a couple of hockey games, but I guess never in for the anthem, and didn't really know that that was a thing that they did at hockey games, and did not have a heads up. So when I started singing, and they are Rangers fans, like they have, I don't even remember what words they scream on, but they have I think they screamed once or twice. And I was not prepared, and I did not know that that was happening. And I literally made me jump, and I was like, oh no, did I do something wrong? And I'm like sitting there talking to myself while the whole time I'm singing, and I had no idea what they even said. Like, I didn't even know that they were screaming a word from the anthem. Like, I had no idea. And then my best friend, after the fact, she was a hockey nut. She was like, I asked her, and I was like, did I do something wrong? Like, why was everybody yelling? She's like, no, Angelica, they yell words of the anthem. That's a thing. And I'm like, oh, it would have been good to know before I started, but that's all right. So now I don't even hear it. Now it's just one of those things. It's like, it happens. It's background noise. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Because some of these games, again, some of these games, it goes on. They do the ones that are like they encourage,
Yeah.
and it just goes on. Others, I'm like hearing from the press on here, there, and I'm like, what the hell are we
You're like,
doing?
no,
Like,
we're learning.
guys.
We're still learning out here in
Yeah.
Seattle. We're
So
still learning our
it
hockey
was
stuff.
to see that aspect of it. I'm like, I wonder if they hear it down there. So now
Yeah.
we'll get to the Kraken and that aspect of it. There's been a trend here, right,
Yep.
with networking. And if anybody has any doubt about networking, I want this to be another example of that.
Yes.
But how did that position with the Kraken come along? Did networking play a part in it?
Of course. Yeah. It was actually, I was just trying to sing the anthem for them. Honestly, I had again connections through who I had already kind of hooked up with out here for anthems or gigs, and was like, hey, do you know who's game pres at Seattle Kraken? I would love to sing an anthem or two for them. And it turned into a conversation more of like hey, we actually, like, my boss at the time had actually heard me sing an anthem at the Mariners, and was like, yeah, you're great, we'll definitely have you for an anthem. And then I got an email a couple of weeks later that was like, have you ever hosted before? Would you want to come in and audition for us or send us a tape? And then again, like, kind of just domino effect from there. I posted it on social media not too long ago. I sent in a tape of me standing in my living room holding a remote control, reading some fake lines, pretending I knew what I was doing. And didn't hear from anybody for a little bit. And then a couple weeks before the season, they asked me to come in for an in-person audition and read some lines on the mic at KCI, and the rest is history. Yeah. That's the
Again, I
version.
figured networking would be involved there,
Yeah.
but I'm sure that was such an interesting time, going through everything. They do the intro video and that whole introduction, obviously the players and getting everyone acclimated, trying different things. How much, I'm sure there's a lot, right? Like, obviously there's a lot different with the team this year, but how much for you personally has been different from year one to year two?
Um, I'd say a lot, just in the sense that, like, we all have a little bit of a better grip of what's going on. And again, for me, year one was year one, like, in all sorts, and also in all of the ways. So this year it's not, it's I feel a little bit more comfortable. I'm a little bit more confident in myself and my, reading my lines, playing games, comfortable, talking to fans beforehand, like even all this, the prep work we have to do before we do a hit or a game or whatever. So just, I think just a little more overall confidence in myself. And then as a team, like, we're having fun. People are more involved this year. Like, again, like last year, everyone was learning. Everyone in Seattle was learning hockey. They were learning how to, be fans for this brand new team, and the do's and don'ts, and what to get excited about and what not to get excited about. So this year there's definitely just like a lot more knowledge in the building, which is great for us. And it's also been super fun that we've been winning. It makes our job extra fun because people just stay excited the whole time. Yeah, but it's been a journey. It's been great. But again, like, it was kind of cool and scary that year one for the Kraken was also year one for me for, hosting and doing this little career change. But kind of, good in a way. We grew together. We learned together.
So you mentioned the do's and don'ts, and this is fresh on my mind because it happened in the game against Columbus. Are you pro or anti wave at the game?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like I can't be mad enough to say anti-wave. Like I love a good wave. How could you be mad at a wave?
Mhm.
But I saw that. I didn't even know that that was like a thing people got mad about. I saw that on Twitter or something the other night, and I was like, why are people even upset about this? Why is this even why is this even a topic? You know, I always get excited. I get excited that it catches on. I'm like really proud of people when they can make it go all the way around, no matter what arena I'm in. I'm like, look at how awesome that is.
I think for me, like it's just when it happens, it's
Yeah.
like they always. I think that one of the Kraken like pregame they'll have like little facts, right? And it's like the wave was started at the University of Washington or something.
Yep.
It's like that's fine. Like I'm a Husky, I'd like to be proud of these things, but I'm not.
Sure.
Um, like there were several Mariners games over the course of the season where it's a tight game. They're going into the top
Yeah.
innings. They're in the thick of it with a run or so, and like it's a tense moment. And they're like, "Let's do the wave," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Why? What are we doing, guys? Like this is
Yeah.
big. They need these 3 outs here. What are we doing?"
Yep.
I think against Columbus, it was in the third period, and we're like trying to hold on to that 1 goal lead, and I'm like, I get Columbus is not the greatest, but I think that's where it lies for me. Ryan Divish with the Seattle Times actually there's a shirt that was made that says "Ban the Wave," and I'm like,
Ban the wave.
I
I
get,
don't
I understand
think
it. I
yeah.
get where it's
I get
coming
I get the
from.
timing. Again, like that's something that's like so out of our control. And I
Yeah.
typically when that's happening, especially when we're working, I don't even know what's going on in the arena aside from what I'm doing. I'm pretty sure when that was happening, I was like standing in the back of the Space Needle Lounge waiting for the TV timeout. So like at that point, like we miss so much. We miss so much,
Mhm.
you know? And not on purpose, but it's like, yeah, I mean, people are just having fun.
And that's the whole point, right? Like I get it. I don't want to be
Yeah,
all
we're
all
there to have
grit, all
fun.
like grouch about it, but I'm like,
Yeah,
that's where I
I
so
know.
again
I know.
curious to hear it from your point of view on that.
Yeah.
Um, I mentioned it before we jumped on here, and I don't know how different it'll be, but what is your day on the life on a game day look like? I know Strawberry had a TikTok on it about people were
Yeah.
confused. They're like, does he live in a hotel? Um, getting to the game, going over the meetings, having, sound check, which I hear here and there, and it's always fun to see what you guys get into,
Yeah.
uh, messing around wise. But how different does that look from you, or what does your day in the life look like for a game day here?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty similar. We're pretty routine with what we do in our time frame of things. I kind of hit a certain point of the day where I, get myself ready. I kind of like half get ready before I go to the arena. I'll kind of do like half hair and makeup so that I don't have to like do 100% of it when I get there. And then yeah, we sit through script review. We have our tech rehearsals. Depending on if we have like, newer games or not, rehearsals will be just a little bit longer. Sometimes if it's all stuff we've done before, everything goes quickly and then we got some downtime to just chill and, study lines and do all that. But yeah, it's pretty standard. There's nothing in there that's too crazy for me. The only thing I add in there once in a while is just spending way too much time in the team store shopping, which I, need to stop doing. But that's probably the only difference that would be in my video because that happens very often. Yeah, but it's a long day. We're there for a long time, but by the time the game starts, we're ready to go. We get it together.
So, and then this is something I also mentioned before we jumped on here. You mentioned being from the East Coast, the Giants fan. So I feel like the sports blood is already in there, right? But for you, does getting up for a game day, heading into the arena, you ever lose that spark? Or is it, some days you slog through it, some days you deal with stuff, or is it always like something happens and everything just clicks and the show starts and you're just amped? Does that ever, do you ever lose that?
I don't think you ever lose it. I think there are some days that are, harder than others. When you got 6 games in 14 days, you got to find the energy. But it's one of those things that's like if I'm tired showing up at the arena, like by the time doors open, you just get adrenaline and it's like, it's a show day, right? So like you pull it together. You get the energy. It appears out of nowhere. I never know where it comes from because I'm so exhausted when I'm walking in there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then all of a sudden it's 5:30 p.m. and I'm doing a pre-tape and I'm like, wow, where did this energy come from? And then you crash. You get home and you crash and it's fine, you know? But it's that performer's adrenaline. It never really goes away. Even if you're, you know, tired and a little bit run down day of, come showtime, it just kicks in.
That sounds about right. Again,
Yeah.
just like with some of these games, like for the Mariners ALDS game 3, I showed it, the media availability started at 6 o'clock. So I got there at 5 o'clock because I'm a madman. And I'm like, man, this was a mistake. My Krispy Kreme donut had, gone through me. It didn't feel that great anymore. The coffee had gone through me. I'm like, what are we doing? It's 7 o'clock in the morning and I've been here for 2 hours.
Yep.
But, fans start to come in and like we're here now. This is it. It's just always the same, whether it's hearing sabotage at these games, you hear center field at the Mariners games, all that sort of stuff. Like it just clicks.
Totally.
So kind of getting close to wrapping up here.
Yeah.
How can you put into words what it's like to work with Buoy on the game day? And your initial reaction, whether that was finding out when Buoy came down from the rafters, or maybe you knew about it before so you could prepare for stuff like that. Your initial reaction and just what that's like. Because sometimes I'll look and Bowie's like on a perch, like, dude, this is a mascot uniform. It cannot be lightweight. Maybe it is. You might fall. Or sometimes there was a video on Twitter of Buoy on Bowie's hoverboard on the bridge and just moving around, and that thing shakes. So I'm like, I wonder what that would be. And I see Buoy was on it. Stuff like that is always just really fun to see. So someone who works really closely with the team's mascot, I'm interested to hear how that was. But firstly, that sort of initial reaction.
Yeah. We were kept completely in the dark on Buoy until day of. None of us knew. They did not give anything away. Which honestly I think was for the better, because all of our initial reactions were just as sincere as everybody else's. I got to sit right in the front and we had seen rehearsals, but like we still had not seen the mascot. We had not seen Buoy. We didn't even know his name until that day. So it was like very all first, like, first day of school for everybody. But we got to sit, Strawberry and I sat like right near the glass for his initial entrance, right underneath him, really. And it was like, I got chills. I almost started crying when he came down. Like it was this thing that we'd all been waiting for. Like there was so much teasing of it last year, and we were just all waiting for this beautiful special character to join our team. And when it finally happened, it was so awesome. Like it was just, I had chills. I was so proud for Buoy and like proud of Buoy. And I mean, working with Buoy is just like, he's great. He's the best. Just keeps the energy up. Like how can you have a bad day if Buoy's around? You know what I mean? And he makes all of our hits so much more fun. There's just another, there's another character in our story. There's another, story for us to tell, something to play with. So yeah, I mean, Buoy's a bestie for sure.
That's got to be a shirt.
Buoy's a bestie. I know.
Or just Buoy besties, like make it a club. Yeah, no, I got to admit, I think I was at a Rain game when that had happened, and I'm seeing it on Twitter. I'm seeing the reactions. I'm like,
Yes.
And you're reading about it, like being related to the Fremont Troll. Everybody wanted to be a Kraken, but like I've like reading, if you know any of like the background of the logo, like they try to keep the Kraken mysterious. It's a whole thing.
Because no one knows what a Kraken
exactly.
Looks like, so we can't tell you what it looks like.
No, like obviously there's the tentacle in there and the red eye, and that's its whole thing. But like if you like, I remember reading about it when we finally found out the brand identity, and that's like so I was like, it obviously wasn't gonna be that. I have to admit, again, was skeptical at first. I was like, okay. But like I had a conversation with someone at a game, actually. I think it was a homestand before last. And and they were like, just the energy that Buoy brings has made me change my opinion. And I was like, I was already starting to get into it just because, you know, some of the things, like you look at the plushes and Buoy has a booty tat, which is a thing,
He does.
stuff like that, you know, but the energy that Buoy brings, and
Yeah.
that's every game, you know, and there's
Yeah.
always something going on. Like one of my favorite moments from this year is Bowie holding Jackson up after the team had scored. That
Oh,
was just the
that.
coolest thing, you
Yeah.
know. And I looked down and I'm like, man, I was gonna cry already. You guys
Yeah.
are terrible for this.
Yeah.
Um, you
No,
know, so
he's really special, and there was so much thought and time put into that character, and we all know that, on the back end, but he's so special, and he brings so much extra energy to every single game. And like I said, like how could you even be mad at that at Bowie? You know what I mean? Like we of course knew, like everyone's gonna have an opinion. It takes time. People don't like change, people don't like new things, but I think he came around relatively quickly to anybody that doubted him.
at least what I've seen, I've got a few friends from Kraken Twitter who are taken very well to
Yeah.
Bowie. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and then to wrap up here, I know it's always tough to make people pick on the spot, right?
Oh no.
Do you have a top three? It doesn't have to be in order, a top three moments from your time with the Kraken, whether that was, you know, inaugural game, you know, 32 day was great. The last regular season home game. Some of these games this year have been pretty wild with overtime games and records and all that. For
Yeah.
you personally, do you have a three that you would throw at me? It does not have to be in order. And just because again, you know, you're someone coming from the East Coast, from what it sounds like, didn't expect to be in an in arena host until all of this has taken place. And this is like a new home for you, right? So
Yeah.
what do you have a top three you would throw out there?
Inaugural day last year for sure. I got to host, and I also got to sing "O Canada" for the first time in Climate Pledge Arena, in Climate Pledge Arena history. So that was really, really cool. That's another one of those, like, bucket list. You never think you're going to be a part of an inaugural team or celebration like that. So that was really, really cool for me. Um, Oh, hard. Bowie's day was definitely one of them, just because it was so long awaited. It was one of those moments that we just needed to happen. But otherwise, I don't know. I mean, I think this whole kind of season collectively has been really special, just with like the amount of people that we get to talk to now and that recognize us, and that want to take pictures with us. Again, it's that kind of like little girl in me that's like, oh my god, this is so cool, like people recognize me for what I'm doing for work. And like, that's, as a performer, that's all you strive for. That you strive to touch people and make people have fun and feel good and be a part of the story. So I feel like I've been really feeling that this year, just like as a whole, that people are really involved and really catching on to what we're doing, and like what we're doing. So yeah, sorry, I can't be more specific than that.
No, I
Very
mean,
hard to
again,
pick.
it's tough to put you on the spot with these
Yeah,
things, you
it's
know,
tough.
like if you asked me to pick the same thing, I don't know if I could, you know, I'd start
Yeah.
throwing things out and we'd sit here for like 2
Yes.
hours
It could
and
go
then
on and
not
on.
have a finalist, right? So,
Yeah.
no, again, it's like I'll say this before we kind of just get to wrapping up. I even before we got this interview set up, like it's been amazing what yourself and the team have been able to do with keeping these fans engaged. Because again, like I told you before, whenever people say, "Hey, I'm going to a game," even if they don't ask for it, I'm like, "Okay, you got to do this. You got to say that. You got to pay attention to this. They're going to do this." It's a whole thing,
Yep.
and they're like, first of all, they're like, "What the hell is he talking about?"
Like, what do you mean?
But it really is such a big deal. And you know, especially with tickets, you know, you want to get the bang for your buck if you're buying a ticket. And I think keeping people entertained throughout the course of that, through intermission, through, you know, ice clearing breaks and all that sort of stuff,
Right.
it's awesome, you know. And to hear about your story about, you know, wanting to affect these kids, you know, just embracing it all, you know, knowing that you've kind of got, at least from the socials, right, kind of got a situation here in this city that, you
Yeah.
know, is working out well. Like congratulations on a recent anniversary as well. It's really awesome, again, to hear the journeys of these people that you see on a game day that are working these for your teams, right? Because again, obviously we're covering this and these teams and all that, but at the end of the day, you know, I still have that kid in me that's like, you want these things to go well.
Yeah.
You're excited to get there every day. I'm excited to go in the team store and see what they have that's new, you know. So
My favorite place.
I
Yeah.
want to put the appreciation out there for that, you know, because I know again it's different. I apologize for the ice storm that wasn't supposed to happen.
That's okay.
Um,
I won't hold it against you.
is there anything outside of, because I know you do some other stuff. I believe you do some coaching
I do.
as well that you want to put out there into the world. We always link the socials in the description, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, they're all
But
on my socials. I work for a virtual gym. Essentially, it's called the U. They are the gym that I've worked for, the studio that I work for back home in Connecticut. They are completely, or for the most part, virtual. We still have a home base, but they do a two-way streaming you know, coaching system. So when we teach classes, there's one of us that is doing the workout with you, and then there's another coach also on the call who is interacting with the clients while they're doing the workout. So there's someone watching you, keeping their eyes on you. Really cool concept, not done really anywhere else. So yeah, working on the marketing team there as well, and just trying to get them to the next level. And you know, I have some private clients too. So that's my little life outside of performing.
again, is
Yeah.
that's the whole thing, right? Is I want to spotlight that because obviously most of what I know you from is that, but I do see that on the socials, and I
Yeah.
think that the U had done some like there was some new exciting news about that had dropped recently, if I had read that correctly from the socials. Um, so you know, I wanted to spotlight that as well. I've been out of shape since I played baseball in high school, so who knows? Maybe
Come take a class.
I got to work on that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, is there anything that you want to leave off on? Whether it is, you know, encouraging people to get up to games when they can, maybe if they need a coach, anything that you want to put out there just
All
to
of the
final?
all of the above. All of the above. Come see us at games. Definitely always say hi. Definitely come take pictures with us. If you want to participate in any of our games, our TV timeouts, get there early. Pre-game is when our stage managers pick fans, pick contestants. I know a lot of people always wonder about that too. So that's a little plug for you. And yeah, if you want to work out with me, so come take class at the U. It's all virtual. You can do it from anywhere. Hit me up. I got all the questions, all the answers to the questions.
All the answers. Okay,
All the
well,
answers
you know, again, I
to certain
appreciate
questions.
uh I appreciate having you on and your time. Obviously, like I said, took me a while to get this sorted out, but and I apologize for that. So I appreciate your time in that. And again, everything that goes into a game day has been awesome. So to have you guys there just makes it all better. And again, I miss Kraken hockey. We've been gone for like 2 days, and I'm
It's
like,
only
hey
been 2
man,
days. I know. It's gonna be a long break. We'll be back before you know it.